This episode contains mature language and adult situations.
Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, my friend. And how is it that you stumbled into my caverns of the abyss? I am ancient. I am forever. And I have been chained down here for a millennia. I am the Shadow Dweller, here to keep you company until the abyss swallows you whole. I've been here for eons and collected stories. I will tell you a tale to pass the time. Short stories of horror, tiny tales of the creepy. I will assure you, by the end you'll be screaming with madness.
Hell am I? How'd I get here? Oh, is somebody there? What's happening? Why the fuck am I chained up?
I hope you've been enjoying your stay in my caverns of the abyss. Morbid Morsals is a new chapter of terror. A short tale of madness to, let's just say, carry your tremendous suffering over to the longer, fuller episodes. So until then, my friends, I've got another poor, unfortunate soul to torture. My apologies if the chains are too tight. Wouldn't want you wandering around down here in the dark. You never know what you bump into. Or for that matter, what would bump into you.
Let me go.
This morbid morsel is called the Shadow People.
The Johnson family was excited about a new beginning. They had just moved into a charming old house nestled in a quaint, secluded town. The atmosphere seemed peaceful, the perfect place to create new memories. Little did they know their dream home would soon become a nightmare. As they settled in, strange occurrences began. Late at night, whispers would echo through the empty hallways, their words barely audible but filled with an eerie presence. The family members would exchange nervous glances, unsure of the source of these unsettling sounds. One evening, as Mrs. Johnson was preparing dinner, she caught a glimpse of movement in the corner of her eye. Turning swiftly, she saw a shadowy figure disappearing into the air. The knife slipped from her hand, clattering on the floor. Her heart pounded in her chest as her mind raced with confusion.
Am I losing my mind?
She whispered to herself, gripping the edge of the counter.
Daniel!
She called, her voice shaky. Her husband Daniel rushed in.
What happened?
I saw something. A shadow. It was just here and now, then it wasn't.
Daniel sighed.
You've been on edge since we moved in. It was probably just your imagination.
But Mrs. Johnson couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One night, Rebecca had dozed off reading a book in bed. Daniel couldn't sleep. He started hearing a soft, rhythmic scratching sound coming from behind the bedroom walls. Sitting up in bed, his eyes darted toward the closed bedroom door, where we heard more soft tapping, like the scrape of nails as it echoed through the stillness. He nudged his wife.
Rebecca, Are you awake? Do you hear that? Something's inside the walls. Guess I'm gonna have to call the exterminator tomorrow and have them check for mice or rats.
It's probably nothing, hun. Just go back to sleep. We'll call first thing in the morning, okay?
She reassured, though her voice trembled, but deep down she knew something was wrong. It wasn't just the Johnsons who were experiencing these unexplainable phenomenon. Across town, the Peterson family had just moved into a strikingly similar house. They too were tormented by inexplicable voices and strange noises that seemed to come from nowhere. Doors creaked open by themselves, cold spots hovered like invisible specters, and shadows moved in ways that shadows shouldn't. Late one night, Mr. Peterson's daughter Emily began waking up screaming. "The lady in the hall!" she cried. "She's watching me!" Mr. Peterson, trying to reassure his daughter, walked down the darkened hallway with a flashlight. He could feel the temperature had dropped. His breath fogged in front of him, and a door slammed shut, echoing through the house. The next night, the Petersons family were lying in their beds. They were jolted awake by a loud crash from the living room. Mr. Peterson grabbed a flashlight and rushed downstairs. As he reached the bottom, his light flickered, revealing a figure standing in the center of the room. A pale, translucent shape, its face twisted in sorrow. "Who's there?" he called. His voice was trembling with fear. The figure stared at him, unmoving, its hollow eyes locked on his. He then felt a cold breeze brush past him as the chair tipped over and the family portrait shattered from the walls. Upstairs, Mrs. Peterson sat bolt upright in her bed, breath coming out in shallow gasps.
"Robert, there's something in here. They're inside the bedroom."
Desperate to understand, the Johnsons and the Petersons, each haunted by relentless apparitions, began researching the history of their homes. They discovered an unsettling truth. Both discovered that they lived in houses built on cursed land. The townsfolk spoke in a hushed tones about past families who had vanished without a trace, their fates intertwined with an ancient, malevolent force. They uncovered an ancient curse, a binding ritual performed centuries ago that left the souls of those who lived in the homes suspended between life and death. Across town, the Johnsons were experiencing the same nightmare. As they sat huddled in their living room, the flickering light of their single candle casting long shadows, they saw it. Another family just standing beyond the doorway, staring at them with wide, terrified eyes. The two families seemed to be looking directly at each other, yet no one spoke.
What the fuck? I think they can see us.
Mr. Johnson said in a shaky voice.
But how is that even possible?
The two families were witnessing the same terrifying sight, each seeing the other, yet trapped in belief that they were being haunted by ghosts. The Petersons saw the Johnsons as phantoms, and the Johnsons saw the Petersons the same way. Days turned into weeks, and the families found themselves trapped in a never-ending cycle of fear and confusion. They could communicate only through fleeting glimpses of whispers that barely reached their ears, like voices carried on a distant wind. At night, they'd hear strange, distorted conversations.
"Can you hear me? Who are you?"
The truth hit them hard. They were not just living in haunted houses. They were the ghosts haunting each other.
Is this it? Are we dead?
Mrs. Peterson asked, her voice barely above a whisper.
No, we're not dead. We can't be. There's got to be a logical explanation. I think we're stuck. We've been seeing each other this whole time, like reflections in a broken mirror.
Desperation set in, and the families were both on the verge of madness. They sought help from a renowned paranormal investigation group called Twisted Souls Paranormal. The group arrived one night with their gear and equipment. Accompanying them was Father O'Reilly. an elderly priest known for performing exorcisms and was often called upon on extreme cases. Father O'Reilly and the Twisted Souls Paranormal group listened intently as the families described their experiences. His face darkened.
I see. Well, you're not dead. And you're not ghosts. You're trapped between worlds. You are not dealing with ordinary spirits. There's a binding curse on these homes. If we're to break it, we must act fast before the spirits drag you fully into their realm. But there is still a chance to escape.
Father O'Reilly explained. That night, Father O'Reilly gathered both families in the Johnsons' living room. The air was thick with tension and dread, and the candles flickered wildly and cast long shadows that seemed to dance in the corners of the rooms.
Okay? Hold hands. No matter what happens, don't let go. And do not for any circumstances break the circle.
We can do this.
Daniel Johnson whispered, though doubt filled his eyes. The team had their equipment recording and was ready to document the event. He began the exorcism ritual, his voice firm and steady as he recited prayers in Latin. As he spoke, the temperature in the room plummeted. The walls creaked and groaned as if the house itself were alive, struggling against the priest's words. Suddenly, the floorboards splintered and a deafening wail erupted from beneath the house. Ghostly figures materialized, their faces twisted in anguish. The Johnsons and Petersons clung to each other, terror paralyzing them as the spirits circled. A scream pierced the air, echoing from all directions.
You can't leave.
The voice was sharp, filled with malice. Figures clawed at the walls, their ghostly forms were twisted and deformed as their hollow eyes looked at them with hatred.
Hold on, don't let go.
Father O'Reilly raised his crucifix.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I command you to release them.
The spirit shrieked in response. The exorcism was working. Slowly, the shadows began to retreat, their forms dissipated into the air. The families clung to each other as the spirits howled in fury, their ghastly faces pressing against the boundaries of the room. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the screaming stopped. The air became still. The shadows retreated. Just when it seemed the worst was over, a final horrifying wail echoed through the room. The ground beneath the families began to shift, pulling them downward, as if the house itself was swallowing them whole. No! Mr. Johnson shouted, gripping his wife's hand as he felt the floor give way beneath his feet. With one final prayer, Father O'Reilly slammed his crucifix to the ground, sending a burst of light throughout the room. For a moment, everything went still. The families blinked, expecting to see their living rooms once more, but what they saw instead sent shivers down their spines. They were no longer in the house. Instead, they found themselves standing in an eerie, shadowy version of it. Walls twisted, ceilings impossibly high, the space cold and endless. The faint outlines of ghostly figures still lingered in the distance.
Dear God, where the hell are we?
Rebecca Johnson whispered, her voice trembling. Father O'Reilly's face was pale.
We're in the in-between. We're trapped in the ghost realm. The spirits didn't leave. They took us with them.
The Johnsons and the Petersons stood frozen, staring at the distorted world around them. But their nightmare was far from over. They had freed themselves from the haunting, but now they were the ones trapped between life and death, stuck in a ghostly limbo from which there was no escape. The shadows began to surround them in the darkness.
God help us. God help us all.
That was the last thing they heard from the priest as they were overtaken by the malevolent forces.
What did you think about that terrifying tale?
What the hell do you want from me?
To enjoy your endless suffering and pain until there is nothing left of you and you are swallowed by the abyss.
No, stay back.
As the caverns of the abyss takes you, I patiently await the next mortal that finds their way here to me. Your dark thoughts always lead you to me. So, my friends, until next time, I look forward to tasting your fear. You have stepped into the abyss.
Into the Abyss has been a Dark Shogun production in association with Twisted Souls Media. Hi, I'm Troy Bursch, creator and producer of the short horror story audio podcast Into the Abyss. If you like what you're hearing so far, please consider leaving me a 5-star rating and review wherever you can. This helps get my show out there to listeners just like you. Also, like, subscribe, download, and hit the notification bell. That way you'll get a heads up every time a new episode drops. Thanks to everyone who listened so far, and I'll have my information in the show notes. Thanks. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram. Facebook is into_the_abyss_podcast. Instagram is into_the_abyss_podcast. Hey guys, be sure to check out my new website, intotheabysspodcast73.com. There you'll find episode blogs, breakdowns, character discussions, topics for upcoming shows. I also have a merch store. You can buy yourself some dope stickers, show your suffering support to the Shadow Dweller. And I also have some dope-ass beats that I make called DJ Trillium Tracks. Or go ahead and shoot me an email, troy@intotheabysspodcast73.com. If you'd like to support the show, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/the Shadow Dweller 73. This is a one-time donation and will be greatly appreciated. Any donations that I receive will go directly to the show, better equipment, and to put out the best product out there for you guys to enjoy. So that's buymeacoffee.com/the Shadow Dweller 73. And anything helps. Thanks, guys. When you're checking out the website, be sure to check out DJ Trillium Tracks. These are most of the songs that I make up to put in the show's outros. These are sick, dope beats to keep your head ringing. I have the Q&A feature on Spotify as well. Drop me a comment or ask a question and I'll definitely respond. Thanks again for listening and downloading. Keep sharing the show, either through social media or with your friends or family.
Hate Playing by DJ Trillium.